I'll be talking about whatever I fucking want. So, a British boy who at the time was known as Mason and then changed his name to iilsve, even though there was already a YouTube channel with that name, was a commentary YouTuber right until his channel was gone from existence, probably due to this guy making the same YouTube Shorts content that I once constantly get in my notification feed back in April 2022. He now has a YouTube channel called Maison. Again, my guess is that he wanted to start over. But since the time of me making the video and uploading it as you're watching right now, he has barely uploaded a video for over a few months. But the reason why I wanted to talk about him is because of his discussion when I saw when I scrolled from his Twitter account back in April this year. And do you want to know what his discussion was about? Well, I'll tell you. It was about racism. Now, whatever thoughts Mason tweeted about his version of knowledge of what racism is and why he deleted a tweet about it, which I'll get to that part a tiny bit later in the video, has no merit or understanding what racism is, all because he's a high school dropout. So these tweets are from January 2023, and let me just say that Mason's reason is shitty. I agree with the Twitter user Liptard who told him you need to stop mixing hatred with racism because there are some people out there who would keep trying to strawman a historical fact about how racism works or is. And when you say, no, I'm not talking about hatred, I'm talking AB racism, you're actually not. Because the difference between racism and hatred are two very different things. If your deleted tweet was black people can be racist towards white people because white people have experienced racism towards a black person, that's not true. Because historically, white people have been systemically racist towards black people who over 200 to 300 years ago have become slaves to white people. Way back in the late 18th century in Atlanta, Georgia, slavery was legal during the era of the American Revolution, and the Georgia delegates would join to insert clauses protecting slavery into the U.S. Constitution when it was new at the time, which helped play an ever-increasing role in Georgia's shifting plantation economy. Black people during that time also received severe punishment by slaveholder by using whips, wooden rods, boots, fists, and dogs. In the mid-19th century in the state of Georgia, black people who were enslaved suffered the loss of property and life because of the Destruction March from Atlanta to Savannah, led by William T. Sherman, the general of Union troops. In August 1955, Emmett Till got beat up and mutilated by Roy Brandt, who was Carolyn Brandt's husband, and his half-brother J.W. Milan, who was armed. Lynching became legal use of punishment in the United States, particularly most common in the southern states of the country in the late 19th century. Benjamin Tillman, who has been a racist white Democrat back in his senator era, admitted he disenfranchised black voters in 1895 because he thinks that 135,000 black voters don't deserve to vote because he says that we of the South, and by that he means the white race, have never recognized the right of the Negro to govern white men, and we never will. I would to God the last one of them was in Africa, and that none of them had ever been brought to our shores, which is why 95,000 white voters back then, during his time, had more power and were way more superior to vote than black voters. Another racist white Democrat, Cole L. Blease, who's an unrepentant white supremacist who advocated for lynching and is against providing education for black people. He said, "You can't educate a horse or a mule or a cow, and you can't educate a N-word. They weren't made to be educated. We don't need them for lawyers or pharmacists and all that. They were made to cut wood, draw water, and work in the fields." And that to me is why white supremacy is a thing that exists, because people like Mason's ancestors in the United Kingdom, who have captured black people and brought them in their ships to make them their slaves. British slave owners were shackled and packed Africans for the duration of their weeks-long voyage. Other Africans who rightfully feared what would lay ahead due to the brutality of the slave traders have gone as to jump overboard, and many who did jump died resisting enslavement. This all arises from racism, Mason. That's why the definition of racism is caused by one race that is superior against people on the basis of their membership in a particular racial or ethnic group who have years of experiencing racism in front of them, typically one that is a minority or marginalized, such as Black, Asian, and Hispanic people. Moreover, those groups have been way more mistreated than white people because the white race is superior than black people. So all you had to do is to acknowledge your racist ancestors' faults and stop trying to spin the definition of racism into something that doesn't even apply to every ethnic race. And like this person said, white people are systemically in power, which means that they do face racial prejudice at most, prejudice at most. But that's just what it is. It will never be racism completely as VLC face it. In most places in the world, they are all systemically in power. I can think of very few exceptions. Racism is when people's economic, political, or social life is incredibly affected as a whole group. If you say that you can be racist to white people, you are completely ignoring the privilege/power they hold. Let's just be real, in all of history, it's not oppression to whites. Please stop being ignorant about a topic like this. I am sure you may have gotten your feelings hurt by some things said about white people, but it really only translates to fear because of your race in very few areas. Europe ain't one of them. And that's why white privilege exists, because it validates your white race to be superior by racial inequality and racial injustice to target black people by using ways of discrimination and cruel treatment so that a black person like myself cannot have the same freedom to live, to eat, to buy, to go to any place, and to vote freely. That is racism. So I'm glad, Mason, that you deleted that tweet, because if you had kept it up, I could have read that deleted tweet while recording this video. And you shouldn't make a racism discussion tweet if you don't actually know all about what you're talking about to the point where you are not educated on it. So the next time, the very next time, you listen to an online influential person who dropped out of school because they were slaving away to make $200 a month before that person you've admired dropped out, because that certain online influential person had to be top one independent to be running automatic businesses. Don't drop out of school, kids. Stay in school and work harder in life so you don't end up uneducated like this white dumb fuck. If you still think that school is harder for you and you do not want to go to school in person anymore, ask your parents about homeschooling. It's much easier, and you can learn at home without all the stress you have to endure from overwhelming your ability to learn. Just don't listen to people like Mason, because they will tend to fail at life itself when they listen to a misguided influential person like Andrew Tate, brainwashing the younger generation to drop out of school without having an actual plan for the reality of their own life in the future.